from Grangetown Baptist Church, and so this week we're doing a series of Easter reflections. So today is Thursday, April 1st, and what I'm going to do today is take a look at what the Bible tells us happened on Thursday prior to Easter Sunday. If you have a Bible with you, I'm going to be looking primarily at Matthew 26. So we have a few things that happened this day. First is the Passover meal, which I'm going to spend time looking at today. And then we also have what's sometimes called the upper room discourse, where Jesus gives these powerful instructions in John 13 through 17. So I'm going to read Matthew 26, starting at verse 17. Now on the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus saying, "Where will you have us prepare for you to eat the Passover?" He said, "Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, 'The teacher says, my time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at your house with my disciples.' And the disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared the Passover. When it was evening, he reclined at the table with the 12. And as they were eating, he said, 'Truly I say to you, one of you will betray me.' And they were very sorrowful, and began to say to him one after another, 'Is it I, Lord?' He answered, 'He who has dipped his hand in the dish with me will betray me. The Son of Man goes as it is written of him, but woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that man if he had not been born.' Judas, who would betray him, answered, 'Is it I, Rabbi?' He said to him, 'You have said so.' Now as they were eating, Jesus took bread, and after blessing it, broke it and gave it to the disciples, and said, 'Take, eat, this is my body.' And he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, 'Drink of it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will not drink again of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom.'" So first, we should probably just talk about what is the Passover meal, right? So we, in the Christian tradition, often refer to this as the Last Supper, because Jesus says, right, "I will not drink of this cup again until I come in my kingdom." So it's his last gathering of the disciples. So the Passover took place on one night and at one meal, but the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which was celebrated with it, would continue throughout the week. So at the beginning of that passage in Matthew, it says the first day of unleavened bread. All right, so that's a longer celebration around the Passover meal. The first day of the feast was technically the day before Passover, but the two were combined because they occurred in the same month. All right, and so this occurred either Wednesday night or Thursday of Jesus' last week. So most likely it's happening Thursday of Jesus' last week. So what is a Passover meal? Well, this celebrates the tradition going back to Moses, where we have the 10 Commandments, and then the final commandment, we have the command of the death of the firstborn son, right? And so the Israelites are commanded to put the blood on their door, right? And so that the angel will pass over them, right? So the blood is there, the angel would not invoke death on that house. And after this, right, you have a great deliverance where the people of Israel are delivered from slavery and leave to return to the promised land. So this meal is celebrated by Jews to commemorate this Passover, right? Passing over us. It was celebrated sometime between sundown and midnight, and so this would have been an evening meal that's taking place. Now, what's happening in Matthew's account here? First, we have to remember that Jesus has predicted his death several times, right? Several times he says, "I'm going to die." But this is the first time that he says one of his disciples would take part in his death, right? One of his disciples is going to take part. So we have Judas named, he's named as the one who will betray him. And you have the disciples all asking, right? Is it I? Surely not I. The way the Greek is set up is it literally reads, is it not I? Is it? Right? So it's saying, it's almost like the answer is given there. I certainly didn't do this. Did I do this? Right? They all ask this. And so because of what happened, right, we tend to think of Judas as this evil, stained individual. But apparently, the disciples didn't think the same way, right? So he was the one who was trusted with keeping money, as we're told in John 12. So there was not necessarily this horrible outward behavior compared to other disciples. So they're all asking this question in their heart. So each disciple hoped to clear himself and wondered if he had the courage to remain faithful. So I mentioned yesterday, right, leading up to these last days of Jesus' life, you have just a series of failures by the disciples. And there's, right, I think, a bigger story for all of us, because without Christ, right, we are all failures. We're in the same boat as the disciples asking, is it I? Am I the one who will betray you? Because I'm not really sure, right? That's why we need Christ, right? Because without him, we are, apart from him, you can do nothing, as the Bible tells us. So here we have Judas, the one who betrays him. In some accounts, Jesus says it would be better if you had not been born, right? Very strong statement, because he's already, accepted the money. The plot is in place. So it's, just worth thinking through the question of, God's plan and our responsibility. All right, the Bible teaches two simultaneous truths. First, that God is in control. We may not know how, what, or why events are happening, but we can remain confident that God knows and God governs everything. Second, we have to remain sure that we are responsible for our own behavior. We can't say, I'm a puppet guided by some hand without a will of my own. Right? We can't say that. We can't say, whatever I do, God is doing it. Right? So we have a sense of our responsibility. And so we recognize that God is in control, that God works in our hearts through the Spirit, but we have to submit ourselves to God. So here we have the Passover meal. It's also worth noting, sometimes we use the term redemptive history, where we see God's plan unfolding throughout time. Some scholars may debate whether reference to Jesus as the Lamb of God, such as John 1:29, indicate that Jesus is portraying himself as the Passover animal, right? So you have this lamb who's sacrificed. Did Jesus think of himself in this way? I'd say yes, from what we can see in the text here. So Jesus is saying at the Passover meal, right, this is my blood poured out for you. This is my body broken for you. And Paul makes it even more explicit. I'll read one verse from 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7. Paul says, cleanse out the old leaven, that you may be a new lump, as you really are in leaven. For Christ, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed. Right? So here, Paul directly refers to Christ as the Passover lamb. And what did this Passover lamb do? It brought redemption, cleansed by blood. We have new life. So Paul makes the argument that old patterns of living, i.e. sin, are done away with. That's the old leaven. This is done away with. We have a new creation. And so we have this ongoing history of the Bible of Old Testament sacrifices, blood sacrifices. We're then given the perfect, pure Passover lamb, the Son of God. So today, take some time to reflect upon this during this day where we think on Christ's last meal with his disciples as he goes next to the Garden of Gethsemane to pray before his betrayal. All right, thank you all for joining, and we'll have our last one tomorrow, Friday.